There's chronic absenteeism, that's at record highs. And this has even been called education homicide.
Still no
You
foreign
say
policy.
school choice is the answer, but South Carolina, your home state, still has not enacted universal school choice, and even the current expansion won't be fully implemented until 2027. Parents can't wait 4 years for a fix. So what would you do right now?
Well, and school choice isn't the only answer, but I'll tell you it's not out of a lack of trying that we didn't try and get school choice in South Carolina. What I'll tell you, first of all, is we have to acknowledge the fact that 67% of our eighth graders are not proficient in reading or math. Over 80% of our eighth graders aren't proficient in history or civics. And recently they came out and said our 12 and 13-year-olds
so you can turn it down a little bit and I'll speak.
In reading and math in decades. So the first thing
this is just a classic thing that capitalists do. They did the same thing with the post office. What they do, or the DMV, you defund said industry, in this case is the educational. That defunding, of course, is going to produce bad results. And then you go, look, we should stop defunding them. We should stop funding them. Look how terrible the results are. But it's the results because you're cutting funding. You're cutting funding, so the results are going to be terrible. And then when the results are terrible, they go, look, school choice, to just extract more money out of the public school system. The Republican Party is trying to destroy public school education.
That's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included. We've got to quit spending time on this DEI and CRT and instead focus on financial literacy, on digital literacy, and on making sure that our kids know what they need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
On the subject of education, a question for Governor Christie. Students in your state are getting high marks on their report cards, but minorities are not doing well with math and reading. Black and Hispanic students averaging 29 points lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you address minorities first?
You have to address all students. And look, in our state, Stuart, frankly, before I was governor, that gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools and more Renaissance schools and more public school choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions
using
in cities like
the
Camden,
black educational funding gap in order to entice inner city people to destroy the public, to help destroy the public school system.
It can be done
when
you give
that's
people
what you
choice.
do to people.
But
like in these,
tell the truth
it's like they're just looking at a black mom, like say my mom, she is looking. Look, I'm just trying to provide something for my kids so they can survive this fucking hellhole here. So that's they're not thinking broadly, Nick. They're not thinking like, man, this choice of school choice is going to destroy the system. I'm just trying to find a way for my child. So people who are just trying to find a way for their child to have a chance, they're using that, Nick, to have those people help destroy.
They have an advocate inside the White House every day for the worst of their teachers, not for our students to be the best they can be. A president of the United States is to take on the teachers union. I did it in New Jersey, and I will do it as president of the United States.
Governor DeSantis, I have a question for you.
Are you going to address why black people are scoring so low? Are you going to address that?
Says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have said slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt. For descendants of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great Black history scholars. So we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6, 5, and 3-year-old. This is personal to us. We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted
this is personal to
you.
Choice.
We didn't just
what are you talking about, bro? Your kids is going straight to private school. What is he talking about, Nick?
And we now have
your kids are going straight. They ain't gonna set foot on a fucking public school campus.
Just like President Reagan asked for in his farewell address back in 1989. Florida is showing how it's done. We're standing with parents, and our kids are benefiting.
Senator Scott, you oppose to these new standards. What is your message for Governor DeSantis?
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth.
Here goes the
because
capitalism
we
has
never
faced
existed without
our
slavery.
demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the black father out of the household to get a check in the mail. And you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family.
I'm gonna have to take a break, man.
This
nigga said you got to restore capitalism.
That's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are.
Why are you saying that? Where was the question where you have to answer that? That's what a coon does. And nobody's even asking me about white supremacy, but I'm raising my hand and say I'm for it. What is
the 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification? Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder.
Nobody even asked you about transgenderism, man.
In this campaign.
Parental rights in schools.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get past a piece of legislation here. The very people who say that this increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry, it is not compassionate to affirm a kid's confusion. That is not compassion, that is cruelty. I met two young women, Chloe and Katie, early in this campaign, who are in their 20s, now regret getting double mastectomies and a hysterectomy. One of them will never have children. And the fact that we allowed that to happen in this country is barbaric. So I will ban genital mutilation or chemical castration.
Parents have absolutely right to federal law that says parents should have that right.
We are going to require states absolutely have to follow through.
Governor Burgum, just to follow up on this, because
yes.
you in your state, you do not have a law that says parents can't be notified. But you want to be president. Would you try to pass a federal law to say parents have that right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say something, because all night long we've been talking about issues about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100+ years of public service. Thank you. But the reason why we're not talking about education or healthcare or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader. I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting with the teachers' unions, we actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room and the customer is the student.
But you do understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education that needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school. The old way the teachers union and the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape. And the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FFA, like and by the way, North Dakota is now at the top of the median SAT scores in the country right now.
Childcare costs, they are up. They're topping $10,000 per month. Some families are spending up to half of their income on childcare. And they're having to decide, is it worth it for me to work, or does it not make sense for me financially? In 3 days, the billions of dollars in pandemic-era funding is going to end, and 70,000 daycares could close. So you had an effort to broaden eligibility for child care assistance. That fell apart last year. And for the moms and dads out there who are worried, what can you tell them if you weren't able to get it through the Congress? How could you do it as president?
Certainly one of the things I did as a member of Congress was to make sure that we protected the Head Start programs around the country, giving people the opportunity to pick and choose the place that they send their children. The challenges that we see today under the Biden administration is that the cost for daycare has gone over $15,000 per child. In the Build Back Broker plan, he called it a Build Back Better plan, it was going up to $29,000. The way we fix that problem is to make sure that we actually cut taxes and give more Americans their money back. When I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we actually lowered a single mother's taxes by 70% on the federal level. For dual income households,
if you believe that shit,
what about cost of healthcare?
You can't believe the way they're describing what they're doing is just simply not accurate. It's just a lie. You can't go off of what these politicians, what they describe.
Let the American people keep their money. When that happens, the greatest opportunities rise from the ashes.
Okay, I need to jump in here. 15 seconds.
They talk about cutting taxes, but what about the private healthcare tax they pay? What about the private childcare tax they pay that they don't pay in other countries in Europe? But I'll let
Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage.
Boo.
The real divide is between the majority of us in this country who love the United States of America and share our founding ideals. Free speech, meritocracy, the idea you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character, and the fringe minority in the Democrat Party that has a chokehold over that party.
To the highest level.
Real divide. So this populist
immigration and
is artificial.
That guy is a coon to the highest level.
We are going to talk about immigration and the border.
I think we're going to go on. We have all these questions. We're going to get to you. We're going to come back to you. There's a lot of time.
We're about childcare. Nobody answered the question. In North Dakota, we knew that the cliff was coming. We knew that there was going to be millions of people about it. And so guess what? We planned.
Yeah, why do you keep interrupting nobody?
Sir, we will.
Why do you keep interrupting?
But you're going to have to let us move on.
The Biden administration is hell-bent on student loan forgiveness, but you say colleges should be on the hook when graduates cannot pay their debt. How does that address the cost of college? The cost of college itself?
Because the colleges are going to have to make a decision. Do we expand the gender studies department, knowing some of those graduates may not have great learning opportunities? No, they're going to focus on the things that really matter. They're going to make different choices. They're going to try to graduate people in 4 years. I also just want to come back to something Dana asked last segment about 9/11.
Watching this debate, I have less hope.
Memorial with the families, my wife and I were. It's very touching.
I have even less
to be
hope
there,
after
and it
hearing
affected
these
my
clowns.
life because I ended up joining the military as a result of that. I've been a blue collar kid, minimum wage in Dunedin, Florida. I ended up getting through Yale and Harvard Law School and somehow came out more conservative than when I went in. And that is not easy to do. Had a lot of opportunities to make money, but I wanted to serve. And I'll never forget coming back on the plane from Iraq, landing in Coronado, California, North Island, and feeling that breeze off the Pacific Ocean and say, you know what? I am lucky to have been born an American. And I think being able to serve, and I'll be the first president elected since 1988 who's actually served overseas in a war. I think that's going to help me as commander in chief to know how
You're not
see
getting
these
elected,
issues
sir.
and understand that there are real lives at stake for people that wear the uniform.
And we know